guys, Todd from Lowbrow here again. Part 3 of Triumph 650 motor disassembly today. Last time we did the top end. Today we're going to attack the primary. Let's go ahead and get started. Make sure you drain your primary before you take your cover off, or it will make a big mess on your workbench. This plug here is basically a level plug. You can take the chain adjuster nut out of this right here, and that will essentially drain the primary. I'm going to go ahead and take these two caps off using a Lowbrow tool that we make. Handy little tool, fits very nicely in these. I'll just use my handy dandy adjustable wrench. And we'll take these two plugs out because they're going to have to come out sooner or later, so we might as well do it now. This hole is for adjusting your clutch center push rod right here. And this one is for checking your chain tension. Okay, now we'll go ahead and take the fasteners off the outer cover here. Got two dome nuts at the front here. And those should have a sealing washer underneath them, if it is correct. Well, this one is. And then you've got 3 screws here, 3 here, 2 here. They are different size. The 2 on the back are going to be, let's see, we got a 7/32. These are a little bit larger socket head than the other 6. And the other one's going to be a 3/16, unless of course your motor's never been apart, and then you may find some with a cheese head screw that looks like a Phillips head. But this motor must have, someone must have put the upgraded socket head screws on there, which does make life a little easier, especially if they've been in there a long time. These are much easier to remove. And there you go, that one washer's on there. I couldn't really get it off with my finger, so pay attention. There it goes. There's your primary cover removed. And I already had drained the oil on this one, so we don't have to worry about that. Now, we have the pressure plate, 3 screws to remove, and 3 screws to remove on the stator. We have a lock tab on the rotor, so we'll go ahead and get those removed. It does take a long socket on these because you have these 2 studs that stick out of the cover, and that's the purpose for the sealing washers here. You don't want oil to leak out of there in between the threads on that. And these are coming off very easy. These are generally a lock type of nut. Sometimes it may be a little harder to get these off. These are going very easy. See, with the wrench on it, it goes, socket goes very easy. When I try to do it by hand, they are still, so they're still got some of their lock property going on there. Okay, next thing you want to do before you remove the stator, obviously the wire is disconnected on the inside. You're going to just pull that wire out of there, and then you should have some washers on here. And you want to try to bring this stator off as evenly as possible because it is attracted to the magnet. And also, if one of these 2 studs is maybe just a tad bit bent, it does come off pretty hard, so you want to try to remove this as evenly as you possibly can. There you go. There's your stator. Okay, then you should have a lock tab on here for this nut that is attached to the crankshaft. I'm just going to use a screwdriver. And bend the lock tab back. If it looks pretty mangled like this one, you'll put a new one on when it comes time for reassembly. All right, I have this Harley-Davidson primary locking tool here that comes in handy for keeping this from spinning around while you loosen this nut. Basically, you're just going to stick it on top of the chain there, and what happens when you go to turn this, it will get stuck in between the... This one wasn't very tight. Probably wasn't correctly torqued. So then you've got this long shouldered nut here that goes down inside of the rotor. Okay, well that's loose. We can go ahead and remove these now in preparation for removing the rest of the primary. And one thing I've noticed very often on these studs, on the long ones, sometimes they get bent. Like I said previously, it makes it difficult to pull the stator off if one of these is bent. And the other thing I notice very frequently is if you're running with a loose chain, it will try to dig a hole in this. So if you see a bunch of chain groove marks on there, if it's only worn a little bit, it's okay to reuse these. If it's worn down pretty hard, you might want to get another set of these. Two long, one short, stator. Okay, now we just started making this new tool here. This is your pressure plate spring tool. This tool is designed to use a socket. So we'll grab a socket the correct size here. Looks like it's going to be 5/8. Now, the important thing about using this type of tool on this is, if you may notice, the studs for the pressure plate adjusting nuts, there's springs underneath here, are proud of this slot. So obviously you can't just take a large screwdriver on there because it will hit the center. So if you notice on the tool, there's two slots and a hole in the center. That's so when you put it on there, it has some place to go. So we'll go ahead and loosen these three, which are your clutch pressure plate adjusting with our tool here. You can feel the spring underneath there. It's kind of fighting me to get this off. Once it gets looser, it becomes easier. Each time I try to turn it, the tang on the spring is catching on the... So you can see it real good right there. So just be patient, a little bit of pressure. All right, so once you've gotten those past where that stud is sticking out the center, then you can proceed with a normal screwdriver if you so desire. So go ahead and remove all three of your adjusting screws and springs. And then you can just take the pressure plate off. That's what that looks like. these cups for the springs. And you also, it's always a good idea. I do usually inspect my parts once I've gotten everything disassembled, but very quickly we'll show you. Generally, if you take these 3 springs and just set them on the workbench, and if you see one that's longer or shorter than the other, then that probably means that they're worn out and it's time to put some new ones in there. These actually look pretty even. Could probably reuse them if you so desire. Now you can see the first plate is a steel plate, and then it's alternating every other plate. It's going to be steel friction, steel friction, steel friction. Probably because this motor's been sitting for a long time and hasn't been in service. I would guess that these are probably going to be stuck together. And we'll find out here. Oh yeah, I can feel it already. Oh, look at that. They're definitely stuck together. It won't normally come apart like that. If this was a running motor, it would have been take one out, take one out, take one out. Sometimes a pick, if you get a pick with a bent end, you can get underneath this to pull on the plate, one on each side, and slide it out evenly. And you can also use a magnet, which will go a little side to side. See how the plate's coming out there? And we have a bunch more that are stuck together. And there we go. There's all of the clutch plates. Okay. All right, so we've already removed the nut off of the rotor. We have the nut on the main shaft here that we need to remove, and we can also take the clutch push rod out now. This actually is your clutch push rod. Goes all the way through the main shaft to the clutch release on the other side, which we'll get to later on. And this is the adjuster I was speaking of earlier, where you take the cap off of the cover and you can get to this lock nut, and that basically coincides with that. So when you pull your lever on the handlebar, it pushes this and moves this out to release the clutch for shifting. So, in order to lock this together, we can't just put a wrench or a socket on there and remove this, because the whole darn thing's spinning around. Well, you can use one of these handy tools that we have available on the website. Locking tool. Basically, it's like a steel and a friction all in one. So you have the inside-outside tangs, and you're just going to slide that in there. You're going to line this up. So now it's locked together, but it still wants to turn the engine over. So we grab our Barbie stairs again. Primary locking tool. Okay. On an earlier motor, you're going to find a lock tab underneath this nut, and you're going to need to bend that lock tab up. This is a later motor, so it has a lock nut. So we don't need to bend that over. We've got everything locked. See how when I started to loosen it, this jammed against that. These two are locked together. And then we can proceed to take the nut off. And there's also a very thick washer here. That magnet is not going to do it. There you go. Okay, we'll get our lock plate out of here. Usually these aren't this tight. I don't know if maybe something's a little worn and that's why it's sticking in there. Voila. Okay. Now we have both nuts off. We're ready to remove the entire assembly, but first we have to take the rotor off of the crankshaft. There is a keyway there, which coincides, you'll see when I pull this off, there's a key. Sometimes these will pop right off by just simply pulling on it, and sometimes they will not, like this one. So what you can do for this is you can use a 2-jaw puller. And we'll just get that behind there like so. It's always a good idea to use something soft, like a piece of aluminum, or for this instance, I have a penny here that I'm going to put against the end of the crank where the threads are, because I don't want to booger this up with the puller. All right, I was having kind of a hard time getting that to center and stay on, so I just temporarily put the nut back on there. And I'm going to go ahead and crunch my penny down in the hole there probably, but once she starts coming off, it should be okay. Basically, as I'm tightening this, it's moving away. So we'll start over here because it wants to center itself there. Okay. And now you can see the keyway. And that is associated with the key on the rotor. We can just use a pair of side cutters. Pop our key off there. And then we have a washer, spaces out the rotor. We've got everything removed here. This will all get pulled off in one big lump sum. You'll notice there are some threaded holes on this front sprocket. Sometimes they'll pull right off. Oh, like this one will. We got lucky. That looks like it's going to slide right off of there with no problem. If you have one that's super tight and it won't slide on there, you can use another puller that looks like this one. And the threaded holes on here, I discovered quite some time ago, are the same size as the cylinder head bolts. So you can simply, if you do need to pull this sprocket off, you can thread these in, and you want to thread it in and use all of the threads that are available. And then you're going to simply install the puller, start the other bolt. Since I don't have to pull it, I'm not going to show you. I'm just going to show you how the tool would be attached here. And you want to run those down into the holes so they're even. And then, once again, you can put your penny on there and just tighten this up and see the sprocket moving. Okay, the other thing I just noticed when I rolled the crank around a little bit here is it looks like Ham-Fisted Harry was in here with a pair of channel locks on this threaded. This basically has threads on both ends, so that will need to be replaced. That will not be reusable. I would not want to count on those threads to secure my rotor, even though there is a lock nut. So it will probably be easier to remove that now rather than later. And since it's already boogered up, we'll go ahead and use a pair of vice grips on there and see if it will come off. The proper way to take that off would be to double nut it. And it is very loose. I didn't really even need the channel locks. I don't know why someone would do it like that. But since this is going to be replaced with a new one or a good used one, we'll go ahead and remove that now. And as you can see, it has threads on both ends. That is the end of the crankshaft. This will thread in. Once again, also if you're pulling, it might be a better idea to pull against this than this. Had I noticed it was loose, I would have removed it. Sometimes you'll find this sucker's in there. It's tight. If the threads are good, you don't need to remove it. You can just leave it in there. Now we're going to use another special tool that we offer on the website. This is a clutch center puller. You'll see it is a very simple tool. It has threads here, nut here, and a flat here for tightening. And if you could see down in there, you would see that there's some threads on there. The only reason those threads are on there is to use this puller. There really is no other way to remove this other than using this. You'll see when we get this apart, the main shaft is tapered with a key. So when this nut is torqued, when you're assembling, it pushes that center onto the taper and holds it on there. So you want to make sure you have this bolt screwed out inside there, and then you're simply going to thread this in. Use your wrench to tighten this on. Catch as many threads as you can there in the center where those threads are for this tool. And I think we'll 86 the extension now. You can use this to hold it. And then you're going to tighten this. And see that? Boom. Popped it off the taper. You can go ahead and remove this now. And now you're just going to slide the entire thing off all in one big lump sum like so. There we go. Primary is disassembled. Here's the taper and the keyway. Once again, side cutters work very good for removing these keys. Just grab the sides of it. That one was kind of loose. That may be something I want to look at. Make sure the keyway in here is in good shape. And then the only other thing we have left in here is the primary shoe. And to gain access to the screw for that, you're going to need to remove this, of which I did tell you earlier, you can drain your oil here. And we're going to take that out. Should be a sealing washer on there. There's that. And then there's, this has threads on it, and you can take the new Lowbrow tool and stick it up in there. Okay, so you're gonna put the tool in there, and you can see that turning now. The other thing I'm noticing on this shoe, if you notice before I continue to loosen it, see how high of an arc this shoe has on it? That's probably a good indication that this chain's worn out. If you notice that your shoe is adjusted way up, it may be time for a new primary chain and also replace the shoe at the same time. And you may also notice how the end of this that adjusts this is shaped like this. So each time you turn it, it kind of goes easy and hard, easy, hard. This tool makes an easy job of removing this part. If you're using a screwdriver, you're in there futzing around trying to get the flat on it, yada yada. So we're just going to go ahead and completely remove this off of the thread so we can take the shoe off in preparation for, you know, completely disassembling everything. And it is kind of a long-winded one there. Still not done. And there's your threaded adjuster. Now that it's out, you can see the way the end of this is shaped and why, if you're adjusting your chain and you're not taking stuff apart, you can see why it has that feeling to it, because it's curved, it's not flat. And the shoe just simply slides off this piece in the front here. If you look down, there's this piece of it with the threads, and then you'll see there's a slot there. And this needs to be in there, and then it'll just slide on, and that will line up with the slot, and that keeps this in place. There's our shoe. Everything looks pretty good inside here. It looks like someone kept up on their primary chain adjustment. Sometimes you'll see where the chain has hit the case. It kind of digs into it a little bit there, just like I was talking about. You can see where this other alternator stud would be. And you can see now, you can actually see a couple of chain marks on this one. I'll show you here, but so you can see just the spot there where the chain touched it. And this is what I was talking about earlier. You can see where the chain has just touched that. Not a problem, as long as it's not very grooved, then you want to replace that. All right, the next thing we need to remove is this cover, these screws, and behind here is going to be the main drive sprocket. These can be a bear to get out sometimes because they are a flathead screw. They're very short, and they may have been in there for a very long time. So what you want to do is you want to find your very best, highest quality screwdriver that fits that slot perfectly. You don't want to use some junky old Harbor Freight frickin' screwdriver on there. Let's try this one. Well, I can see now this is going to be a job. None of these want to come off. And the next thing we'll do is we'll go get a chisel. Okay, so I have this chisel that I kind of ground it down, and basically you're just going to get it in the flat and you're going to shock the hell out of it. And then using a good quality screwdriver, there we go, look at that. Just shocking it with the chisel, got it to come loose. I've got those 3 loose, I got 3 more to go. And there always seems to be the last one or the last 2 just don't want to come out. You just have to persevere. See, like I said, it's a very tiny screw. But it is imperative that we get them all out, and we will. Don't worry about boogering them up with a chisel, because 100% of the time I usually replace these because they never seem to want to come out. And it always makes you feel better if you get the ones out that are loose and then move on to the stubborn ones. Makes you seem like you're getting somewhere. Okay, so it looks like we have 2 stubborn ones left. We'll go ahead and beat on them some more with the chisel. There she goes. 1 more to go. Okay. Danger averted. We got her. I'm just going to take a punch and I'm going to give it a whack. You know, obviously use a little common sense there. You don't want to beat the hell out of it, but you will see that there is no way to pry on this cover because it has, whoa, fuzz all over it. See how it has this lip, and that goes into the case to seal it. So you really don't want to try to pry from this side. It's much easier to just, I didn't hurt anything by just using my punch in between the sprocket. And you may also notice there's a seal in here. That seal rides on this and keeps the primary fluid from leaking out through here. This should have had a gasket on it. It does not. Not a bad idea to use a gasket on this. We got them on the website. And also maybe a little bit of sealer. Reassembly time. Okay, next thing. Here's our main drive sprocket. This will also come in handy for you guys that may be just replacing your sprocket. You'll be doing everything I've done so far today. Primary off. Obviously you won't have to remove every single piece to just change the sprocket. And now you're going to see another lock tab here. And look at that, guys. Does that look like it's correctly torqued? Absolutely not. It's a good thing the lock tab's on there, or this could have been a disastrous effect with the sprocket trying to work itself off of fourth gear. So always make sure you have a lock tab on here. Now this is pretty common. I found this on multiple times I've taken engines apart where the nut is loose like this. Other times it's tight. What you can do if it's super tight, obviously this is all going to spin around when you're trying to loosen the nut. What you can do is put a piece of chain around this and clamp it in your vise. And then you can break the nut free. Or you can use an impact. Half-inch impact with a large socket and give it a brrr. This is standard right-hand thread, as was this one, as was this one. And that's for you Harley guys out there that may be rebuilding a Triumph. This stuff's not like a Harley where it's got the left-hand threads on the nut. So we'll go ahead and bend the lock tab over. Hey, we can use my favorite punch too. Once again, on reassembly, this lock tab looks pretty gnarled. We'll just be using a new one. Okay, since we don't have to use either an impact or a chain. If you don't have an impact, like I said, you can wrap a chain. There's your nut. There's your lock tab. And we'll see if this sprocket wants to come off or not. Once again, this is going to be similar to this one. It's either, there's splines here, there's splines there. Sometimes the sprocket will just slide right off. Sometimes you got to pull it. That's why it has holes in it. So this one doesn't act like it wants to come off. So, well, would you look at that? Our head bolts that we reviewed earlier fit those too. Isn't that great? Oh, look at her. She's coming off now with just by putting the bolt in it. So once again, it pulls off or it doesn't. Puller, no puller, whatever it takes to get her apart. There goes our main drive sprocket. Basically, as I was threading this in, it was hitting this seal, and that's what pulled it off, but I just couldn't pull on it. It just wasn't coming. And that is in need of replacement. The teeth are starting to hook. They're all starting to go one direction. That means it's on its way to be worn out. Not going to reuse that on my rebuilt motor. Okay, that's it for this side for the primary. We're done over here, gang. We're gonna go ahead and move to the other side of the motor now and take some more stuff apart.